Hi everyone, welcome back to our page. Welcome back to our Postnatal Talk Series. Today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Samantha Odion. She is many things. She is a social worker, she is a psychotherapist, and I'm sure you're going to love this conversation today. Before we continue, I'm just going to read her bio and then we'll go on with the questions. Samantha is a registered social worker and psychotherapist based in Ontario with a master's degree in social work and registration with the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. With a clinical background spanning anxiety, trauma, depression, and perinatal mental health, Samantha brings a trauma-informed, culturally sensitive lens to her work and a deep belief that healing happens in the context of real human connections. She is currently specializing in perinatal mental health, with a focus on education and consultation, supporting healthcare providers, mental health clinicians, and organizations to better identify, support, and respond to perinatal mental health challenges. Samantha is passionate about reducing stigma and closing gaps in perinatal care because when the people around new and expecting parents are equipped and informed, entire families benefits. Samantha, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
It's such a pleasure to have you, and I know this will be a rich and informative education. Now, to start with the first question, we went through over your intro. Just tell us a little bit about you and, why did you choose that path, that career?
That's always the first thing, you get asked and you have to kind of start explaining your story.
Yeah.
And I am a storyteller. I love telling stories. And so the best way for me to give you context is with a story.
Yeah.
I went to go visit a family member who had a baby, a newborn baby. And I remember we were conversing one evening and she turned to me and she said, unprovoked, do you think I'm a good mother? And I thought to myself in that moment, like, why would you ask that question? Like, are you attention seeking right now? What's going on here? Something I laughed at, and we moved on with other things. And of course, going through this process, I had to do that learning that in that moment, I was invalidating them. And that's often something that happens with this population.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I became a social worker is because I often empathize with individuals. I often empathize with those around me. And I ask myself, what can I do? And of course, I also had a short stint in the postpartum ward at a hospital and just seeing the way that mothers would come in with their babies. It's a joyful time, but at the same time, it's a scary time.
Yeah.
So all these things together just kept on pointing me into this direction that perinatal mental health is probably an underlooked and well-deserved component of mental health care, and thus began my journey into understanding and specializing in perinatal mental health care and support.
Wow, that's really good. And you've pointed out so many important keys, how, the most joyful moment can also be, the scariest and the most sensible season for a mom. And there's not many sort of support available or help, or maybe they don't know where to look. And that's actually one of the reasons why Postnatal Kindness, was born. So I'm glad we have you today, to help us. Does a social worker becomes a therapist immediately, or it's a two separate sort of specialization?
That's a very great question. So by default, being a registered social worker, you are allowed, should I say, not necessarily allowed, but by being a social worker, you can deliver psychotherapy. However, there are specializations and trainings required for you to become competent in the delivery of psychotherapy. Psychotherapy itself is a controlled act. So there's a lot of training, ongoing learning and supervision and consultation that's needed for you to be competent in the delivery of psychotherapy.
That's good. I see. All right. Now, childbirth places the mom under extreme, and immense physical and mental stress on the mind, on the body. And even if when clinically things seems to be that have gone well, the baby is good, is alive, the mother is good and alive, many parents still feel that their experience is undermined or not appreciated for their true, because it's in my language, when a mother gives birth, they say, simbimanga means you've escaped death, literally. You know what I mean? How can we better recognize, validate the emotional impact of pregnancy, childbirth, and the postpartum period in general? How can we do better?
It's interesting, Winnie, that you say that you escaped death.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are not aware just how traumatizing that process can be. A lot of times the emphasis is on the result.
That's it.
As opposed to the input the process.
That's it.
Well, you have a healthy baby.
That's it.
Right? What are you complaining about? The baby's here.
That's it, yeah.
But there's so much that goes on beyond just the healthy baby. And I think one of the things we can do is that we can hold space for two truths at the same time.
Right.
Yes, my baby is healthy. And yes, I feel different.
That's true.
Yes, my baby is healthy.
Yeah.
And yes, it was a traumatic birth.
Yeah.
Right? Because not all trauma ends in mortality.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of deliveries, or there are a lot of deliveries that can occur, a textbook delivery for all intents and purposes, but the process was not smooth sailing.
Yeah.
What was going on in the mother's mind when delivery was labor and delivery was going on. And so I think, to answer your question, one of the ways that we can recognize is by asking. Simply put, just asking the mother, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And actually waiting for the answer. Because a lot of times we listen with the intent to respond as opposed to listening with the intent to understand. So when you ask a mother, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Don't just gloss over the answer. Take the time to understand. Well, what does that mean for you? And so when you start asking and listening, you're able to recognize. Also, conversations like the one we're having right now, they're very important. Because what the research is showing is that 1 in 5 women actually report perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Even more interesting is that 1 in 10 fathers actually experience depression post the birth of their baby. So you realize that it's not just about the mother, the family is affected. And so it's important to ask these questions, to understand what the signs look like, so that when we can ask, we can recognize, we can support. And that's what I think is missing right now, right? You have a newborn baby. Everyone talks about the baby smell, the baby. Great job, mom. You pushed. You go, girl. How are you feeling?
I almost died while pushing.
It's really important, and even to take it from a trauma lens, right? Trauma is not just the thing that happens, but it's how your body, your mind, your brain makes sense of it. I heard somebody say, simply put, that trauma is anything that happens too much, too fast, too soon.
Too much, too fast, too soon.
Exactly. So even delivery or labor and delivery that is traumatic because you were expecting maybe push and it comes out and then they tell you we're going to have to wheel you into the OR. That's too fast. What's going on around me? I haven't had time to make this up, right? That can be traumatic in itself. And I think that's the part that's not recognized and that's the part that's not spoken about. That it's not just you had a baby, but what was going on around you as you went through this process, as that baby came into the world, even after the birth, what's going on around you. All those things add to the perinatal experience, and they need to be recognized with a simple ask. A genuine, simple ask is needed to start that conversation.
That's good. That's very good. You've mentioned a lot of, important things. For example, I know sometimes we don't overlook, but we don't consider the father, that they go through it. as well, because they're part of the family, and sometimes the mom is not able to do, a lot of things that the dad has to come in. But we'll come back for another podcast for that. But 1 in 5 mom goes through, either perinatal or postpartum depression. That's a lot of moms. Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about the signs. How can we, better identify the signs? Because, after the hospital, the mom is at home almost for about 12 months. And there's a gap, I believe there's a gap in the healthcare system, where there's not enough follow-up for the mom. The baby gets enough follow-up, I remember I had a nurse coming in after the twins were born, but they were focusing, is the baby eating, is the baby sleeping, is the baby what? They will maybe check my C-section, a little bit, but the focus was on the baby. And I remember saying, okay, so does anybody see me here? And the first appointment is after 6 weeks. 6 weeks. That's a lot, Why is that gap? And I know there's no right answers, but maybe,
That's actually very interesting, right? Yeah. You say that the first follow-up appointment is 6 weeks. And what I'm understanding and what I'm learning is that often when we talk about postpartum care, there's always so much focused on the physical that the mental is always tacked on as an afterthought. And that could be one of the reasons why there is a gap in. Here's the other thing, because in that 6-week period, a lot can happen.
A lot. The drop in hormones that affects everything.
Absolutely. A lot can happen. Yeah. And there's this thing we talk about the baby blues. You hear about that, the baby blues, right? Yeah. As soon as the baby's born, you take the baby home. I believe if you have a vaginal birth, you can even go home same day, and if you have a C-section, then you can go home in 2 days, and thus begins new life. That's it. Then there are the baby blues. Maybe like 3 to 5 days, you start noticing maybe the mother is having some difficulty, and the idea is just, it's an adjustment period. Everything will course correct. You'll be fine. There might be a little bit of irritation there. There might be a little bit of mood instability there, but you can function. That's okay. But here's the part that's not seen and that's not talked about. If that's not taken care of, you can often decompensate into the perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, right? The postpartum psychosis, we're seeing that. The postpartum PTSD, we're seeing that. We're seeing the OCD, the anxiety, the depression. Matter of fact, the language is actually moving from postpartum depression into perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. Wow. Because now they're realizing that it's not just about low mood anymore. Yeah. What about those anxious thoughts? What about the excessive, uncontrollable fear of hurting your child? Yes. Those are things that cannot be seen. Yeah. And so in that 6-week period, because it's not physical, it's often hidden. And that's kind of where the gap is. And so again, conversations like these and being able to recognize the warning signs often allow for easier and quicker access to care, and also self-advocacy plays a huge role.
That's good. You've talked about baby blues. Those are the early signs, that, a shift is happening. By the way, biologically it has to happen, but how you are cared for during those, especially 6 weeks, will determine the rest of your postpartum experience. Yeah. Now, for a new mom, for example, who's listening to us, just had a baby a few weeks ago and is feeling, as though her body is changing and does not necessarily know how to pinpoint on, what's going on. Irritation, lack of sleep, extreme fatigue. What are the extreme warning sign, let's say, that she should pay attention and maybe go seek for help?
Yeah, those are actually great points. So like I was saying earlier, that mood instability, that irritability, that lack of sleep are some signs to pay attention to. Now, most times they might resolve themselves in 2 weeks or you might still be functional. Now, that's not to say that 2 weeks is the recovery process or you must wait 2 weeks until you report. But start watching yourself. Am I sleeping properly? If I'm not sleeping, something might be up. Some mothers might say, when the baby's sleeping, I'll sleep. But even when the baby's sleeping, you're unable to sleep. That's a warning sign. Your inability to connect or feeling detached from the baby, that's also a warning sign. Postpartum rage. It's often underreported, but that's a huge sign. These bursts of anger, frustration, that's such a huge sign. It's not just the mood swing. That's a warning sign for you to be like, no, something's going on here. I need to talk to somebody. I need some help. So those are some of the warning signs. Often when your sleep is messed up, which of course we know happens a lot during the postpartum period, all these things tend to follow, which is why it's important for mothers to be able to get rest when they can, and not just rest, but restorative. So the baby's sleeping. Can you close your eyes? Even if you don't sleep, just turn your brain off, right? Just a quick shut eye for 20 minutes, catching those little bursts here and there. Those things kind of help, because often when your brain is tired, you begin to see those changes also.
That's good. Very good. And sometimes the realities of families is that even though they're tired, they're unable to have, because the house has to function. The husband has to go make money sometimes to even it out financially at home, because the mom is at home. There's other siblings. One of the things that we do is we come in to do all that, physical work that has to be done, whether cleaning, whether it's grocery shopping, whether it's pharmacy pickup, and all, to allow the mom to actually rest. And I think that's where society, sort of is not organized enough. Well, it's true that many of us come from somewhere and we left our village over there, and we don't have that cousin, auntie, uncle, grandpa, grandma that can be there. And that's the reality of, many families. But I think we need to educate, more, the people that even if you have to pay someone to come and do what you're not able to do it, because your mental health and your physical health is at risk.
Absolutely. You're so right. One of the other things I want to say, and it's going to sound very different from every advice anyone could ever get, lower the bar. Lower that bar.
Lower the bar.
Perfectionism has no place in the perinatal period.
No.
Lower that bar. Absolutely. Matter of fact, drop the bar.
Drop the bar.
Drop the bar.
Completely.
Right? Because we're not in a space, like you rightfully said, for those who are coming from back home from Africa, we always have that help. The mother, then the mother-in-laws coming to stay for like the first year or so. The reality is that here in the Western world, that's not always the case. A lot of times you're thinking, we're pretty fortunate here that you have maybe a year of maternal leave, but not everybody is that fortunate. And so you need to be able to lower the bar. This is not the time to start keeping a clean house.
That's true.
This is not the time to start cooking a 10-course meal. It's not the time. What's important? Your health, physical, mental, the baby's health, physical, mental. And you have to also realize that you've not been here before. There are people who've had multiple kids and they'll be like, oh, this is not my first pregnancy. But no pregnancy is the same. So you haven't been here before. There's no expectation for you to have everything figured out. So drop that bar. Absolutely. The bar is non-existent. It's invisible.
That is so
drop
good.
the bar and take care of yourself and the baby.
Amen.
That's one way that you can support yourself while going through the postpartum period with a newborn.
That's very good. Drop the bar.
The bar doesn't exist.
Now, becoming a parent can really change, how we see ourselves. It affects our self-esteem, identity, body, entourage, and, just our image in general. What can parents do to help them rebuild, I guess, the confidence?
It's going to be a long one, Winnie. Buckle up.
Let me buckle up.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on through the perinatal period that I think we ought to talk about. There is this idea of matrescence, and it's the idea that having a baby, as a mother having a baby, there are cognitive, biological, physical changes that you go through, just like an adolescent, right? So in the adolescence phase, they're going through those changes. So it's called matrescence. And the idea is your body is changing, your mind is changing, the way you think is changing, all these things are changing. And so in the same way that you wouldn't penalize an adolescent who's growing up and entering puberty and having these mood changes because they're trying to figure out who they are and what's going on with their body, why would you penalize or stigmatize a mother for the same thing? Right? And the other thing I think is often neglected is the grief that comes with it. You remember who you were before the baby, how much fun you used to have, how much sleep you used to have, all the friends you used to hang out with. You could wear your crop top then. Maybe you can't wear your crop top now. It's okay. These things are not to be trivialized, right? Because again, it's not just what happens, but it's how you process it. And so there's no reason for it to be trivialized because this is real. That it's not happening to you does not make it, irrelevant. It's real and it happens to people. So during that matrescence phase, it's important that there is kindness, postnatal kindness. It's important that that kindness does exist from the mother herself and from the people around her. And one of the ways to, kind of connect with yourself is keep a pre-parent identity. So what's one thing you used to enjoy doing before you became a parent?
Right.
What was a hobby you enjoyed doing? Who was one person that you could connect with that allows you to keep that pre-parent identity? Having a baby does not mean that you lose who you were before. So it's important to be able to connect. And it's not lost on me that in the society that we live in today, there is this expectation to bounce back. You got to snap back,
Beyonce's
right?
body.
Snap back game. The snap back game effect is real, right? It's but it's a farce. It's not real, right? It's not real, but we want to tell ourselves that it's real. And I want to add this layer also. There also exists that expectation of, I got to be ready to please my husband, right? That one's not spoken about often.
I think maybe that's an African thing. Do you think it's an African thing or?
I think it is, right? Your husband's waited 6 weeks. You got to get back in the saddle because he can't wait anymore. Really. And so there's this pressure to perform and I want my body back, but can we just slow it down and be real? Your body just went through a massive change. It carried and birthed new life for 9 months, sometimes more, sometimes less, right? And so can we just be real about that and pace ourselves? I think that's really important.
That's very good. That's extremely good. Now if we go into advocating for ourselves in the healthcare system, we've mentioned that a little bit, but this week happens to be the Black Maternal Mental Health Week awareness, and let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, let's talk about it. What we see, on the news or what we hear, is that maternal health is already complicated, but Black maternal health is really on the red signs everywhere, especially in the Western world. For many reasons, here I've heard of language barrier. I've heard of not understanding our healthcare system. I've heard of especially people that came from elsewhere where it's not in our culture to advocate or even argue with your doctor, when he's telling you something that you're able to talk back and ask more questions. So a lot of them don't feel heard. They don't feel seen. And sometimes it's in the most sensitive time, like when you are giving birth.
you can barely think. So imagine giving birth and, you're not being seen or heard. How can we better advocate for ourselves?
Okay. I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some stats, and then I'm going to answer your question.
Perfect.
I'm going to start with the stats. The research is showing that 50%, or actually over 50% of Black women deal with a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, but are not being reported. Over 50% of Black women in comparison to their white counterparts. The research is also showing that Black women are 2 to 3 times likely to die from maternal mortality than their white counterparts. So this issue is deeper than we think.
That's serious.
Absolutely. Now to the story. In 2017, I read an article in Vogue that Serena Williams had written, and she was talking about her very scary near-death experience when she was delivering her first child, where she knew that something was wrong, and she felt that she wasn't being listened to. And I thought to myself, if Serena Williams, okay,
OMG,
with all the power and money at her disposal, could have this experience, then what's happening to that immigrant woman that's just coming to the country, that doesn't even understand how to navigate the healthcare system? Irrespective of money, of class, or power, Black women are united in this experience that Black maternal mental health is often overlooked. And it's for a number of reasons. Like you said, we don't necessarily, argue.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even use the term argue, but, inquire, probe. We don't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
There's also the Black woman is strong schema that we were braced to believe. You can't complain. The world is built on the backs of Black women, right? So you just got to take it and be quiet. Another reason is that a lot of these things that we see that are used to, measure these sort of maternal mental health are not built for Black women. They're not. It's kind of like when, they do the research in ADHD and they usually use boys.
Okay.
So a lot of times females who have ADHD are often overlooked because the poster child for ADHD is a rambunctious young boy.
That's true, yeah.
In that same manner, when the research is being, curated or when it's being done, Black women are not the yardstick that they're using.
Wow.
And so what needs to happen, again, the awareness, it needs to happen. What also needs to happen is the advocacy, right? Don't be afraid to ask. I'm feeling this. It's been ongoing for X amount of days. I would actually say write down your symptoms.
Write down, yeah.
I felt this on this day.
Yeah.
I've not felt it before. 2 days later, it's still getting worse. Right? Be able to write down your symptoms, because sometimes when you are in front of your doctor, in front of your healthcare team, you might forget because there's just so much going on.
True.
You have
That's
20
true.
minutes. You have a 20-minute time slot. It's not the time you're going to remember that you felt a sharp pain at 4 a.m. 6 days ago. Right?
You know what? Actually, that's a good one. Yeah. Go ahead.
So write down your symptoms. It's important.
Yeah.
Also, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. I want to get screened for this. These are my symptoms. I would like to get screened for this. Maybe even take someone with you as an advocate, right? Somebody who's been around, who understands what you're going through, who you've been able to share with. Take them with you to those appointments. Be able to speak up. And then on a wider basis, because the onus is not on the mother, it's also a systems issue. And that's why training, right? Cultural competent training needs to be offered to perinatal professionals. Because if we're saying that we're treating not just a certain group of women, but all women, then it's important that we are culturally competent to treat them perfectly. And so on a systems level, there needs to be more training for perinatal professionals to be able to identify what these signs look like in women of color.
Yes. Very good. Very, very good. Oh my God. Very good. even for me that's been here for 25 years, when I go to see my doctor or specialist, you know, it could be a little, you know, scary some, and you know, you first of all you have about 10 minutes, you know, to explain everything. I had never thought, for example, of writing down, you know, everything that has been feeling the past, you know, few days, so that I can better explain.
Or write it down.
So since the system is not set up for us, we kind of need to force our way, and, you know, be more conscious when we go see the doctor, be more conscious when after giving birth, you know, if you can't wait that 6 weeks, call, knock on the door and say, I need to see someone before my first appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, a lot can happen in those 6 weeks.
A lot can happen.
And there are a lot of supports I also feel that where most people are not aware of. So for example, the Postpartum Support International, they actually have Canadian directories, right? They work with local Canadian directories to be able to connect you with non-crisis peer support groups. There's nothing like the power of community. When you're sharing your symptom and another person's like, hey, I went through that, I understand. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Something's not adding up here. I want to go seek, right? Because often one of the things I also recognize is that stigmatization leads to silence. And the more silent you are, the more the data gets erased and hidden. So being able to even share that experience through a peer support group can allow for a new level of awareness to emerge.
That's true.
So Postpartum Support International does offer support. There are perinatal social workers or perinatal mental health clinicians. You can search the directory. They exist.
Wow.
Right?
That's good.
So there's so many resources that are available, and sometimes I feel that it's not because we don't want to get the care. It's maybe we're not aware of the care that's available.
That's true. Yeah. And one of the things that we have on our website is a resources center. I'm going to work with you to add more from that, you know, all of this, you know, I knew a few, but I didn't know, for example, that they have Ottawa, you know, services here. So it's good that we can add them so that more people can be aware of where to find help.
And I also want to add this, and this is just from like a broad mental health perspective. If at any reason, to any mother listening, if at any reason, at any point, you feel concerned for your own mental health, you can always call 911.
You can?
Yes, you can. If you feel like your safety is at risk, right? Let me put that there. If you feel like your safety is at risk, you can dial 911 or present to your nearest emerge. And this is not just because this is not postpartum depression. Like, you're at a point where your mental health, you are fearing for your safety, right? You're afraid for your safety. Like, I feel like I'm going to harm myself, or I feel like I'm going to harm this child. You can call 911.
That's very good to know.
Or you can present to your nearest emergency.
Okay, that's good to know, because I've heard not so great stories, especially with postpartum psychosis, that it doesn't end well, either for the mom or for the baby. So if they can, you know, when they feel like really this is not well, they can dial 911. That's good to know.
And you know, that what you just said actually brings an important point. A lot of times people don't speak up because they feel like they'll be taken away, the child will be taken away from them, when in actuality they're not doing anything wrong, right? They recognize I'm having a break from reality. Like postpartum psychosis, I'm recognizing that this is not me. On a regular day, I wouldn't want to harm a child, right? I need help. Why would you penalize somebody for that? And so, again, back to the systems things where the training needs to be, needs to be developed properly so that people don't feel penalized for speaking up and saying, I'm afraid I'm going to harm myself or my child. I need help right now. But please know and believe that if at any point in time you are concerned about your safety, right? Like you feel like your safety is at risk, please do call 911 or present to your nearest emergency room.
Good. That's good to know. That's good to hear. Now, the last two questions talk about therapy in general. All right. Now, therapy, the last few years we hear a lot about therapy, go to therapy, And it's great. I've used, therapy, the last few years. does therapy always mean something is wrong? And, can you help us, debunk and decolonize our minds from what therapy actually means?
Okay. Yeah, that's I'm gonna put it this way. It's important to name what it is and what's going on here. A lot of times in BIPOC communities, in religious communities, we see mental health concerns as spiritual issues. Okay, well, just pray it away. Well, Jesus and therapy can coexist. I tell you that much, right?
They can.
Allah and therapy can also coexist. We can hold space for two things at the same time. Therapy is a skill building space as well as it is a healing space. If you wanted to build muscle mass, for example, you would go to the gym and you would get a trainer.
Correct.
If you wanted to eat better, you would get a nutritionist.
Correct.
If you wanted your nails to look good, you would go to your nail lady, right?
Correct.
So why is it different when it comes to mental health matters? I think that we need to start looking at it that way.
Yeah.
That you are having some kind of issue does not mean that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need support. Sometimes you just need to build skills.
Yeah.
And to
mental
put it,
skills.
Exactly. And simply put, we already normalized talking to people.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah.
I've talked to you in the past.
Yeah.
I could talk to a friend. You can talk to your partner. So we've already normalized talking to people.
Yeah.
Why not talk to somebody in a professional and structured setting? That's ideally what therapy is. So no, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that perhaps you need to talk for whatever reason, to build skills, to understand something about yourself, to gain support. And as you would do it for anything else, you should be able to do it for this.
That's good. That's good. Very good. Jesus and therapy can coexist. It's very good. Now, on the final remarks, we've learned so much in this conversation, really. And I can't wait for you guys to listen. I can't wait for us to break it down and write notes on everything that we've learned. If there's one message you would want to pass on to a new mom or a new family, about protecting her mental health, what would the message be?
Okay. I want to share this before I give my message. When we talk about, because I'm all for inclusivity and I want everyone to know that they have a place.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, the perinatal period, I want people to also know that it includes surrogacy and adoption. It's not just somebody the woman who births the baby, because if it's surrogacy, you still have to bond with the baby, and there are those anxieties around what would that look like, and also adoption, right? A lot of people, not all, but a lot of people who pursue adoption could be because of infertility, right? So that is reproductive trauma. All of that is contained in the perinatal period. So I want to include everybody here, when we talk about this perinatal mental health wellness. My message to you is you are not a reflection of what you're going through. You're a human being. The fact that you're struggling postpartum is not a reflection of how much you love your baby. You're simply going through a very significant transition, one you've never been through before. So you need the support to go through it. And also lower the bar.
Give yourself a lot of grace.
Lower that bar.
Lower the bar.
Drop the bar.
Drop the bar.
So struggling doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean you don't love your baby. It just means that you're going through this significant transition, right? Physically, cognitively, emotionally. Let somebody walk alongside with you. That's what support looks like. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Right? We all thrive when we are connected.
Correct.
Support is a form of connection. And don't be afraid to speak up.
That's good. Very good. Samantha, thank you so much
you for having
this time.
me.
We've learned a lot. We have lots of notes that we can share with our audience and every, parents going through this season. It's an important season, but it's important to be equipped you know, and to know the signs when things are going wrong, so that you can, and that there's resources available for us. That's good to know as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when these kind of conversations happen, and with the work you're doing, Winnie, it's amazing. When these conversations happen, people gain awareness. Then they know what's out there, right? True. Because again, the data dies with the silence. And the silence is often a function of stigma. So the more vocal you are, the more you are seen.
Correct.
The more you are seen, the more the research expands to include what your presenting concerns are. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not to say that the system is perfect, but silence allows for the data to die. And so these conversations are important. The work you're doing is important based on your lived experiences, right? Being able to support other people during the postpartum phase. It's very much needed, and I want to commend you for that.
Thank you so much, Samantha. And thank you for coming here with us. We look forward to having you another time. Now we'll talk about fathers, I guess.
Do you have 3 hours?
Oh my God, that would take us 4 hours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And take care.
You so have a great one.
All right.